How's it going, guys? Dylan from Luxury Lives On, and I hope everyone's doing well today. As you can see, we got a new car. It's a Maserati and it feels right. Now, when Joel Walsh wrote that song, he was wrong about one thing. My Maserati goes 191. Alright, so admittedly I may not be Billy Walsh, but you have to admit, when you're in this car, you just feel cool. And no, that's not because I'm wearing sunglasses. It is a bit sunny out. Just to give you guys a backstory, if you haven't watched my channel, our BMW i8 is dead. Moment of silence, please. However, that left room for an opening slot. You see, we needed a car that was practical and spicy at the same time. So we got a Maserati Quattroporte GTS. It seems like every car we have is just a mouthful to say. Now we've added 2 more doors, so you can actually add the family to the driving. But at the same time, it's fast and fun, and well, we think of it as a spicy alternative to, well, your regular S-Class or your 7 Series or whatever is going to compete with this car. It just seems to be, well, the one hidden thing on the market that everyone stops thinking about. So essentially what I'm going to do right now is walk you around, well, some of the cool features on the exterior and the interior of this car, and also talk about, well, the spec and options that we got with this specific car. Now, to talk about specifically the spec of the exterior of the car, we have it in almost a navy blue. I think it's pretty close to, one would say, maybe a Jerez black on a BMW, except for it's a little more blue than that. But it's very deceiving because right now it actually looks quite dark and boring. But in the sunlight, it gets highly metallic. And in fact, the metallic bits are all light blue and turquoise. So it's a very interesting color to work with. So it's almost mature looking, but playful at the same time. Now, in addition to that, some of the options we have are, we have the extra sporty rims here, multi-spoke rims, the red brake calipers for the GTS variant. You have the classic triple vent here that you saw in the original Quattroporte, and just about every other American car has copied it with a fake vent, but these are real. Speaking of vents, the most significant of them all is the vent with the giant trident in it. This is a key feature on the Quattroporte. It's got a big, big mouth, and I just think it makes it look so aggressive. It almost actually looks like a Maserati GT that's just been stretched a bit. So that's really, really cool on it. It's very clean, concise on that end. The headlights, I think, are quite pretty. They're not too large. Usually you have really giant lights on these sedans. You have a lot of metal bright work actually here that really isn't cheap. You would think this would be a place where they would cheap out, but it really isn't. It's actually quite a nice touch. And then in addition to that, you have the classic Maserati emblem on the rear haunch here. And you can kind of see that metallic blue a little bit here too. Now moving to the rear, it's a very subdued rear actually. You have the classic GTS emblem, which is what everyone pays for with these cars. You can get the non-GTS or the GTS, different power, and we'll get into that in a second. But I think it's, you know, it's subtle at the back. It's not something that's too ostentatious, but it's still pretty. Now you obviously have the quad exhaust on each end, which gives it a very sporty detail as well. And that's kind of, well, the exterior of the car. I think it's really pretty. I think it does everything it needs to do. It's luxury and sport at the same time. One special bonus feature about the Maserati Quattroporte is you would think, being a very Ferrari-esque derived brand in the family, they would know how to get red right, except for the red on the brake calipers is fading to a pink color. So is the emblem here. And then in addition to that, the GTS emblem here is starting to fade and break away. So, I mean, we got a Ferrari engine in here basically, but they couldn't figure out Rosa Corsa. Now let's move to the interior of the car, and the first thing to immediately note is it has double pane windows, something you'll see very familiarly on Bentleys and Rolls Royces to kind of get the sound a little more quiet on the interior. Now for the interior, we are not as nice and wild as the exterior. We've gone for just a black leather, and the leather, I have to say, is beyond amazing quality. It's rugged, it's tough, it's absorbent, it's comfortable. You can press your head on this, and it's just reminds me of the additional add-on Rolls-Royce pillows you can buy that just kind of add to the rear headrests. And you have a lot of contrast white stitch work as well throughout the car. Just adds a lot of dimension to the seats, and you know, it doesn't forget about it at the rear. Oftentimes you get these cars and, well, is this seat moving? Jesus Christ, I'm slowly being crushed. Anyway, you have a lot of the same detail at the rear. Alcantara headliner. And by the way, I just got this car cleaned for the video, and I guess we have a sun visor. Just a side note, who else has ever got their car cleaned and discovered new things in the interior from the people who cleaned it? And yeah, so we have Alcantara headliner throughout the entire car. A very sporty detail, of course. We have piano black wood inserts throughout, which are very great. It's very shiny, but it shows a lot of fingerprints and a lot of scratches. Now we have a very nice steering wheel. It's kind of funny on the steering wheel. You have the paddle shifters which stay in place, which is always a good thing, so you don't leave them in another turn. And well, the tacks look really nice in that classic Maserati blue as well. Very, very nice. And yeah, it's got this really nice GTS clock here, kind of giving you that reminiscent luxury thing. And then, oh God, what is this? Oh, sorry. I thought this was the 1920s screen on here. Yes, that is the issue. Here we go. I've been talking about how nice the leather is and everything like that. Now, Chrysler does have a bit of input here, and because of that, on the Quattroporte, you have some touches that are Chrysler-esque. I'll do a video that outlines everything, but the screen is rather shocking. So you think it looks nice, the emblem comes up and everything, it makes you accept this warning. You have to do the seat heaters on here as well, and it's just beyond ugly. You go to the map, view map, and it looks like a PlayStation video game from the early 2000s. So that's the one problem, but yeah, it's a very nice place to be other than that. And you have a bit of plastic as well here and there, and then on the rear cup holders, which I'll show you. So it'll be a good plan here. So now you can see how comfortable it is at the rear. Now the seat's in a comfortable position for me, and I have plenty of room back here. That's a very important thing to note. Something you got to realize too, guys, is when you're in these luxury sedans, if it's not like a Rolls Royce or something, you often get forgotten when you're back here. But you have some funny controls. You have a seat heater right here, and it already feels like it's on, honestly. You have the rear sunshade, but for some reason there are two buttons to do the same thing. I guess they wanted to make each passenger feel inclusive. So yes, these are two redundant buttons, very Italian already. Storage space here, kind of cheap. This is a cheap piece of plastic that's like all dinky. The Ghibli will have far more plastic than this car. Other than this though, storage space. See, and they just pop open automatically. But yeah, it's a very nice place to be. You can do sunshades at the rear as well here. So you can get sunshades all around pretty much. So it feels like a very nice, you know, environment to be in. It's not like, oh, I want to call shotgun. You almost be like, well, I don't really mind if I get left nut. Now let's go to the trunk and I'll put my new car wash Discovery back here. You also have a, that's what the flipping hell is it? Okay. Pretty good trunk size, honestly, enough to fit a body. I mean, that's the requirement for anyone, right? And you can fold part of the seat down to get a pass through. It's a perfectly sized trunk, which just adds to the practicality of this car. And then of course a button to close. That camera, by the way, oh, you thought I forgot about you, huh, Maserati? That camera is absolutely horrific. You gotta see this. This is a notable mention. Up and in reverse. It's even worse than the map. So, yeah, something to keep in mind. Another weird, funky thing is there's actually a switch here, and you can move the pedals back and forth. So it's almost like you got a LaFerrari. All right, let's leave the interior and check out, well, the most important thing on any Italian car, the engine. Oh, let's see, yes, there it is. All right, so already it's actually quite a pretty engine. Usually engines nowadays are covered by giant pieces of plastic, but at least this is a pretty giant piece of plastic. Now, the reason why this is so impressive is they could have very easily just outsourced the engine, put an old thing in there, except for this is a Ferrari-derived engine, meaning it could not be any more Italian than it is right now. It's got a 3.8 liter V8 twin turbocharged engine that puts out over 523 horsepower and 524 pound-feet of torque, which gets this thing to a 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds, making it faster than the comparative M5 of its time. And it brings it, as I mentioned to Billy Walsh earlier, over 190 mile-an-hour top speed in this giant chunky piece of blue. Now, cars today are flooded with modes, buttons, sport, comfort, all this type of crap, and it sounds nice in theory, except for the fact that none of these buttons ever do a flipping thing, except for this car. All right, so here are our buttons. Now, I can tell you with certainty that most cars that have suspension buttons, it doesn't really do anything. Except for with this car, it makes a huge difference. You see, it feels like you're driving on Jell-O if it isn't selected, and if it is, suddenly things get sportier, more tame. You can actually kind of corner with it. So we'll press that. The next thing is manual shifting. So this actually makes it so that if you don't shift this paddle, it will over rev. So this means something too. And then the last button, the most important, is by far the word that is the most whored out, sport. This does a lot, specifically to the exhaust. And when you've combined all of those together, well, things get interesting. Suddenly you have a luxury car that turns into an absolute animal. Suddenly, with the suspension, it's firmer. It can handle. With the sport button, you hear an exhaust. And with, well, the manual setting, it allows you to make mistakes. The car is addictive, it's fun, it can get you in trouble, and then suddenly, all the plastic crap, all the Chrysler parts start to feel like gold. And you can go past Porsches with this and make them crap their pants. Case in point, this turbo. No one expects it to be this quick. And you hear that whine every time you downshift from those twin turbos. It's a monster. The other thing I love about this is there's almost this contradiction between practicality and sportiness. And you see that very much in Europe. There's a great appreciation for fast wagons, hot hatchbacks. And well, now in America, we're suddenly seeing a little more of that transfer here. But I think all the intrigue comes from, well, the fact that you could pick up your kids from soccer practice and make them pants on the way home. You can drive past someone and they would have no expectation that you could drive past them that fast. And it's this luxury and practicality that makes you so shocked when you start from an absolute standstill and you can do something like this. Tire spin. I guess what happens when you have over 500 horsepower in a rear-wheel drive car. I just don't think many expect it to be with, well, 4 seats and 4 doors. It's just a monster. There is no doubt in my mind that this thing will do 190. Sorry, Joe, we're gonna pass you here. My Maserati does 191. I hope they don't take my license because I like to drive. Well, there you have it, guys. That is a tour of my pops' brand new Maserati Quattroporte GTS. Congrats to him and many happy miles. Also for me as well. Let's be honest, I'm gonna steal it. But guys, this is an awesome alternative on the market because, well, Maseratis are just not thought of anymore. You have Audi, BMW, and Mercedes that envelop all the 4-door luxury segments, and this is just such a spicy alternative. And I have to say, although I never would have thought of this car as an option for us, I get more and more intoxicated by it every single time I drive it. Before you judge a Maserati, get behind the wheel of one because it's like a bloody drug. Now guys, if you want to see more stuff that I'm on, go to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. If you want to see what equipment I use, go to the Amazon links below. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to see more of my content, please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.